Welcome back to the Brocarde show. I'm here at Incarceration, and as you can see, I'm in a cell. This is the most haunted music festival in the USA. Why? Because it's in the grounds of Ohio State Reformatory. Subsequently, there are a few resident ghosts hanging out to listen to some rock and heavy metal. Before I go and check out the music of this weekend, I want to touch upon the ghosts. Naturally, I'm a ghost girl. I'm a ghost hunter, if that's what you call us. I'm a paranormal enthusiast. So naturally, this festival is one of my dream festivals for those very reasons. I'm going to tell you some ghost stories next because I feel like we haven't had enough of that in this video. Let's go and find a sleepy little cell and talk ghosts. Welcome back to the Brocarde show. I'm here at Incarceration, and as you can see, I'm in a cell. This is the most haunted music festival in the USA. Why? Because it's in the grounds of Ohio State Reformatory. Subsequently, there are a few resident ghosts hanging out to listen to some rock and heavy metal. Before I go and check out the music of this weekend, I want to touch upon the ghosts. Naturally, I'm a ghost girl. I'm a ghost hunter, if that's what you call us. I'm a paranormal enthusiast. So naturally, this festival is one of my dream festivals for those very reasons. I am completely in love with historic sites, and I'm completely in love with all of those supernatural tales that come with haunted sites. So the combination of a haunted prison like this and a heavy metal festival is literally dream territory for me. And you can probably hear the noises in the background, which are not real life ghosts. That is Blood Prison. They actually have an on-site scare maze here, which I'm hoping to, at some point, I will go and check that out. But for now, I'm going to tell you some of the most notorious ghost stories from Ohio State Reformatory. Two of the most famous ghosts here are actually the Warden. Well, the Warden and his wife. Sadly, the Warden's wife died in the Warden's apartments when a loaded gun fell out of the closet and shot her, and she met a grisly end. She is one of the most prolific ghosts that haunt this prison. I love it when a spirit captures your imagination. I talk about this all the time, but there are several different ways in which you can pick up a spiritual entity, and one of those is smell. So with the Warden's wife, she is identified by her smell of roses, and the Warden is identified by the smell of cigars. So those are two very scented, spirited spirits. And when you're in the administrative wing, apparently you can smell cigar smoke and roses out of nowhere, and that is supposed to be the Warden and his wife casually saying hello. I'm going to get to that part of the prison. Well, I'm going to try and get to that part of the prison and see if I pick up on the Warden and his wife. Maybe both of them together, they might come and say hi. But I'm going to tell you a few more ghost stories first. As you can imagine, this is a former prison, so a lot of the deaths were quite violent, and one of the other malevolent forces inside this prison is that of a boy called James, who was beaten to death by his fellow inmates. He is said to be a very unrested soul, and he also makes appearances throughout this site. So we've already got 3 resident ghosts, and as this is one of the most haunted locations in the whole of the USA, there's sure to be more. One of the most violent parts of the prison is the eastern cell block, and again, this is another area where people pick up dismembered voices, disfigured figures, shadow figures. Everything you would actually expect from a haunted prison goes on in the Ohio State Reformatory. And as you know, it's incarceration, and I talk about this a lot. but there is quite a strong theory that heavy metal music conjures spirits and they respond to the energy. So I feel like this weekend is going to be a very active weekend, both for music and for ghost sightings. So stick with me. I'm gonna do a little tour. I'm gonna capture the best of incarceration and share it with you. If I don't melt into a pool of my own sweat. It's very hot here in Ohio. In fact, a thunderstorm's on the way, and thunderstorms are also another predominant time to spot ghosts, because again, intense energy fields conjure things from the other side. There is a hell of a lot of energy at incarceration, so this is gonna be fun. I can feel it. And there's some hella good music too. Don't forget, I'm not just here to talk about ghosts. I'm here to talk about music. And there's some really cool bands. I think today, this is the first day. This is my first day at incarceration. This is my first time at incarceration, so I'm excited for multiple reasons. And today, Disturbed headlining. So we are kicking off the festival in style. And this is really cool because the main stage is set within the, call it a quadrangle, within the courtyard of the prison. So a pretty cool spot for spotting ghosts and spotting bands. So I'm in here, I'm out in the corridor of the cell block. I'm right on the upper level. As you can see, this is all that is protecting me from that huge drop. And it's, if you kind of try and imagine what it would have been like with all of those prisoners rammed in here, like the rowdy energy, that kind of pent up aggression and frustration, it kind of takes you back to a whole other world. It's hard to get into that mood at the moment because the energy is really high. Everyone is excited for the music, but yeah, this is the corridor. And for those of you who don't know, the Shawshank Redemption was actually filmed in this prison, and there's a whole exhibition, and if you're interested in kind of learning about which scene was filmed where, then there's a lot of information about that here too. So if you're not into ghosts and you're just into movies, then also a pretty cool place to walk around. So the cool thing about when you come to incarceration is that the prison is open and you can do a self-guided tour, which is kind of what I'm doing now. And it's quite interesting how the energy shifts from area to area and from floor to floor. Like, I've hopped in a completely different cell now, and in this cell, it's very strange. I mean, I can almost hear like echoes of something or other, and yeah, the energy on this side of the prison, and I need to do my research because I'm not sure exactly where I am, but here I have suddenly started to feel quite nauseous, and we're a little bit away from the action now. The stage is on the other side, so I feel like the energy has shifted slightly, and that's kind of helpful for someone like me, because for a few split seconds, you can shut out all the noise, all the energy of the festival, and you can be taken somewhere completely different. And this is why I love what I do. If you're someone who's really sensitive, like I am, you can literally pick up on shifts of energy. You can sometimes walk down a corridor and the energy will completely change. I mean, this is a really hot, blistering day. You can probably tell that I'm literally melting as we speak, and never appropriately dressed, might I add, but what can I say? I'm not your girl to be running around in vest tops and shorts, so this is what we're dealing with. The fashion stays, whether it's 100 degrees or minus 20. Anyway, what I was saying is it's quite interesting for someone like me how you can simply walk down a corridor, something will change, like a veil will be lifted, and you'll be transported somewhere else. And it's very hard to be transported somewhere else when you're in the midst of an energy of a heavy metal festival. But that is kind of what's happening on this wing, and it's very, very strange. It's almost like a dizziness, like a lightheadedness, like a thinning of the atmosphere. This is actually the heart of the Eastern Cell Block, and as I was saying, the little bit that I was just in is easily the most terrifying section of the cell block. However, if you come around the corner and down one flight of stairs, you can actually see cells that are laid out how it would have been for an inmate. I mean, it doesn't look particularly comfy, and I'm not wanting to jump in that bed. But yeah, it's kind of cool as well, because that can help transport you back into the prisoner's mind in some way or another. It's a prison. I mean, it's what you expect. It's kind of basic. It wouldn't have been comfortable. It would have been torturous, but it's a prison. What do you expect? I have actually just stumbled upon one of the most haunted cells. This is the cell of former inmate James Lockhart, who actually set himself on fire in this cell. So as you can imagine, the bed is moving. I mean, it's kind of hanging off the wall, but it is bouncing. Yeah, so this is potentially one of the most haunted cells in the whole prison. And I don't know if it's whether you have, when sometimes, you know, when you know what happened somewhere and you can almost smell the smoke. And actually that's quite ironic because there are Canadian wildfires, so the whole of the atmosphere is filled with smoke. So that could be the reason why you could smell smoke. Or, if you want to believe it, it could be because someone set themselves alight in this very, very cell. Are you a believer? Are you a logical thinker? We have them all. You decide what you want to believe. But the bed is no longer moving. I mean, to be fair, I could have just nudged it with my arm, so not necessarily anything paranormal, but yeah, oddly, not the darkest energy. It was a lot darker around the other side, in my humble opinion. I've made it to the heart of the prison's hospital, and as you can imagine, again, it's noted as one of the most haunted places in the prison. Personally, I feel that that title needs to go to the Eastern Cell Block area, but if you can imagine, this was a hospital, and there's actually a picture when you come into this room of the beds just stacked up next to each other, like really kind of clinical, robotic, and you imagine people in here. It's an infirmary. There was a lot of death that happened in here, a lot of painful death, a lot of illness, a lot of horrible things would have happened inside the infirmary. And at the moment, it's just a vast open space, and you have to just use your imagination to imagine it when it was full. And the picture takes you right there. They even have a plaque on the wall about the paranormal activity. Good morning. I have my first day at Incarceration in the bag, and that festival is absolutely enchanting. I love the combination, as I was saying yesterday, of the haunted prison and the heavy metal music, and I'm going to be back there in an hour or two. But I thought it would be rude not to show you where I'm staying. I am channeling my inner Disney princess, or should I say, evil queen. I'm staying in Landor's Mohican Castle, which funnily enough is said to be haunted. This site is actually like staying in a Disneyland resort. It's very themed. I'm not sure how authentically themed. This isn't a castle that's been here since the Middle Ages, but that doesn't stop it being haunted, because the epicenter of all of this paranormal activity is said to be the cemetery. Yes, that's right. This hotel has its own graveyard. It has its own graveyard and haunted cabin. I'm going to take you there. It may be in a separate video, but I'm going to take you there and completely deep dive the haunted history of this property. In fact, little spoiler alert, I may actually be filming a music video in the haunted cabin, which will be very, very eerie because I want to do it in the dead of night, and this cabin is in the middle of a graveyard. This graveyard is called Hyde Cemetery, and it dates back 230 years, and there are two very, very prolific hauntings of a mother and her young daughter. In fact, when we head over to the graveyard, I will show you the tomb of the mother and child, because it is a shrine. It is literally, people bring offerings and people bring gifts and people leave little toys, little ducks, little dolls for this young girl, because she is one of the most prolific ghosts of Landor's Mohican Castle. The hauntings here go back to the land rather than the hotel, but that does not stop the hotel rooms being haunted. People often spot apparitions of ghosts going through their hotel rooms, outside the hotel rooms, and as I said, as the name would suggest, this is a castle hotel, so it has turrets, and I'm in the Landor suite, which is the penthouse suite, and of course, it has its own turret and spiral staircase. You can probably see from the bed behind me that it is very medieval themed. I could almost joust you across the room. But yeah, this is the bed, which probably needs a moment all of its own. And this is quite a large room. Like I said, it's a suite, so there is a sofa bed, there is like a kitchenette, there is a tiny little terrace out that way which kind of overlooks the land. But if you go up this staircase, or I'm going to take you right now, you will see there is like a panoramic turret where you can sit and enjoy the view. It is very, very hot up there. I mean, it's very early in the morning now, so it should be fine, but in the height of the day, that little bit of turret doesn't have AC, so it's like a little sweat box. So it doubles as a sauna, so you can sit there and sweat away those excess pounds from Ohio junk food. Anyway, I'm going to take you up, I'm going to give you a little tour of this room, and maybe in a separate video, maybe in this video, I will share the haunted history in depth at this hotel. Here I am in the castle turret. There's a bit of echo up here, a good bit of reverb. Just start singing like a lunatic in the attic. I mean, my hair's not long enough, but it is sort of giving Rapunzel vibes, so maybe I should throw my hair over the side of the balcony and see what happens. I'll tell you what will happen. Absolutely nothing. Anyway, I'm going to take you outside. It is daylight now, so it's not particularly atmospheric, and we have had wildfire smoke, so it's very hazy, very misty, and immediately my eyes will probably start twitching, but I'm going to take you around the turret so you can get some 360 views of the castle from above. So here we are. Here I am on the roof, on the turret, and someone is whizzing past on a goat cart, a golf cart, not a goat cart. Yeah, and here you go, you can see the other turret behind me. So there's several of these turrets, and I believe that there are suites in all of them, but they call this the penthouse one. And as you can see, we are in the middle of the forest, in the middle of nowhere, which adds to that spooky, majestic energy. And I love the way here. I've stayed here for a couple of nights now, and I love the way you wake up to bird song. You are fully immersed in nature. And actually, another really cool thing, there are lots of deer. They come very close to the hotel. They're very tame, and it's literally like you see Bambi every now and again. It's really cool. I feel very at one, and it's already ridiculously warm, and it's probably about 8 or 9 a.m. in the morning, so it's going to be another hot one, which always adds to the fun when you're trying to film content. You know, I was literally melting yesterday, and it wasn't a pretty sight, to be honest with you, but hopefully what I filmed looks okay, but that remains to be seen because I haven't watched anything back yet. And there's a huge bug. You can keep seeing me look to the side. There's a huge bug, which is really attracted to the camera light. So yeah, insects. I mean, like I was saying, I was bragging about the nature, and here it comes right up to say hello. Anyway, this is the turret. Whoa. Like, I don't even have any perfume on, but it seems to be quite attractive to me. At least it's not a ghost, I guess. So anyway, this is the turret. And there's a couple of chairs that I can't get past, but as you can see, it's 360, and take a little seat here and just look into the forest and watch the day go by, wait for the ghosts to come and say hi. I feel like this would have been better at night, so I'm going to nip out after dark and show you this in the dead of night, because I think some of these turrets do light up. They do ghost tours here, and they do tours of the haunted ceremony, but I'm not a tour kind of girl, so I'm going to take you there independently and show you what it's like after dark. It's day number 2 here at Incarceration Festival, and I'm back in the haunted prison. This is actually the 2nd floor, which would have been the warden's quarters, and we touched upon this yesterday. This is supposedly one of the most haunted areas of the prison, but let's face it, there are a lot of haunted areas in this prison. At the moment, there is actually an exhibit here. It's a Shawshank Redemption exhibit, so there's flyers and movie paraphernalia all over the walls, but this is the former kitchen where the warden's wife Helen, who tragically died by being shot with a rifle that fell out of the closet when she was reaching for her jewellery box. So this is her former kitchen. So basically, this whole floor would have served as the warden's living quarters. There are rooms that are now offices, which used to be the warden's bedrooms, and this was his family living area. I'm about to do a walkthrough of Blood Prison, which is the haunted scare maze attraction inside Incarceration. And if you come here at Halloween, this is a permanent exhibit through the fall, but it's also here at the festival. So I'm gonna, hopefully, I don't get too scared. Like, I am the biggest scaredy cat, as you will know. If you have watched my Halloween content, you will know that I am the most jumpy person on the planet. So wish me luck with this one. I'm scared by an animatronic, so when that's an actual living person, it's going to be a hell of a lot more interesting. But I don't know why I do this to myself. I mean, I tell myself I'm a Halloween spooky content creator. I spend my life scared out of my skin, so what am I doing?
undergo rigorous testing and experimentation. Not every experiment is successful. But at OSRMR, every failure is progress toward the future.
That was absolutely amazing. As you can see, I'm very, very shooken Yeah, it was pretty scary. Like, they've done a really good job of actually getting the jump scares in, and at some points people do come from all different directions, so a pretty good scare maze. And of course it doesn't hurt that it's actually inside a haunted prison. That second half there is actually in the prison's basement, which is one of the most haunted areas in this whole building, and you can actually feel the atmosphere change as you go down those stairs. So I bet even without the scare actors, that would be absolutely mortifying. So yeah, the combination of the two things, the real life ghost stories and the actual paranormal activity and the actors, makes for a pretty terrifying experience. And I kind of like the way as well that it's prison themed, like they're keeping it relevant to the location that it's in, and it's not just randomness. So yeah, thumbs up for Blood Prison. So I need to calm my nerves a little bit. I'm actually in the western cell block now, and a couple of cells behind me. This is a music video hotspot apparently, so Godsmack have filmed in this here cell, and Lil Wayne has filmed in this here cell. I mean, you don't need to tell me that this prison is hugely aesthetically pleasing and would make an amazing music video set. And obviously I'm not alone in that thought, but it's kind of cool the way that they tell you what's gone on in each cell. It's kind of interesting. I like the haunted cells the most though. Don't tell anyone. So a fun little fact for you. I spoke a second ago about the cell that was used for Lil Wayne's music video. Well, aesthetically it's quite different from all the other cells because it has been painted especially for that music video, and as such there is a gold throne, or should I say a gold toilet. There's also gold bars in here and a gold sink, so it sticks out slightly from all of the other cells. But I guess they chose to just leave it in this state as a homage to Lil Wayne. I mean, I guess in a building where each cell looks the same, this provides an additional point of interest. Aside from the ghosts, I'm going to tell you some ghost stories next because I feel like we haven't had enough of that in this video. Let's go and find a sleepy little cell and talk ghosts. Come inside. I want to tell you a little bit more about why this prison is considered to be one of the most haunted in America. As you all know, this was originally supposed to be a rehabilitation facility for young boys, and things turned very sour. What moment in time transformed this young offenders prison into one of the hardest, most gritty prisons in American history? In the 1930s, there was a huge fire at the Ohio State Penitentiary. That meant that a lot of the hardened criminals within those walls had to be relocated, and a lot of them got relocated here. So you had a mix of first-time young offenders and hardened criminals and murderers, and the prison was so crowded, and it's sweltering hot. You can tell by the way I look that it's sweltering hot here. These prisons were cramped and the inmates were increasingly angry. There was murders. People literally bludgeoned each other to death. And there was a lot of suicides and just a horrible, angry atmosphere. If you could sum up what this prison would have felt like back in the day, the one word that you could choose is angry. And that's why there is quite a lot of hauntings, quite a lot of angry prisoners. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about those. We already touched upon the warden and the warden's wife, and they were clearly wardens. They were not prisoners, but they did meet a very deadly end. But as I touched upon earlier, Helen did meet a very deadly end. And I was strolling through the warden's quarters earlier. That is the front section of the prison and its offices today, and it's very different to being in the heart of the cell block. You wouldn't necessarily even call that area particularly eerie, particularly haunting. So the fact that people are seeing Helen's apparition on a daily basis is actually quite interesting. None of this stuff matters. I mean, if you have a ghost and you have a spirit, the atmosphere, the place, the location, I've said this before, but you can actually come across a ghost in your local supermarket. Like, that is the reality of spirits and the reality of hauntings. So the thing is, with buildings like this, they have seen an abnormal amount of violence, murders, suicides, and anger. So the energy, even today inside this prison, is something that is indescribable and incomparable to most places. You know, you can go to a haunted house, you can go to a haunted home. Often those homes are only haunted by one or two individuals. In some cases, you will get extremely haunted homes that have been multiple different things over the years, and therefore their ghosts may have come through the generations and they might have different ghosts from different eras. But typically, prisons are the most eerie and the most uncomfortable locations for people who are sensitive to spirits. And hands down, I can say my visit to Nevada State Penitentiary, which is all the way over the other side of the country in Nevada, that was hands down one of the most deadly and scary experiences that I have ever had. This is quite different because obviously we're at incarceration and it's the middle of the day, so you're not going to get that isolating feeling of being in a prison cell block on your own in the pitch black. And also, I was allowed into the execution chamber, which was the part of the experience that meant that it would stick with me in my mind forever. But electric chair was the method of torture in this prison, and there is an electric chair room, which I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to have access to on this trip, but it's pretty interesting nonetheless, because as you can imagine, it's where a lot of people died, so very, very heavy energy in there. And actually, there was a lot of references to what went on in this prison in the Blood Maze scare attraction. So the attention to detail is there. They actually had the electric shock bars when we were in the cell block section, which was quite an interesting little touch. I always think these haunted attractions are better if they play on the history and the genuine haunted history of the location. And then you have this weird thing that's going on. Like I said when I came out, you have the genuine paranormal heavy energy that's terrifying enough, and you have actors obviously elevating that beyond the barriers of reality. So it's a funny mix, and I guess that's what makes these kind of locations brilliant for scare attractions. It's like the Queen Mary has such an epic amount of haunted history. So when you take those ghost stories and bring them to life at Halloween, there is an element of reality running through those scare mazes, which makes them that extra bit terrifying. Back to the ghost stories. The one area which I haven't yet been able to show you on film is actually the hole, and I walked through that area yesterday. It's actually an area of 10 cells which was used for solitary confinement, and the passages are really, really narrow in there. And I was actually in a sort of traffic jam of people in those isolation cells yesterday, which was a really, really bizarre experience. And because there were so many people around, I couldn't actually pull the camera out and start talking to you about what I was experiencing. But what is said to happen in there is very, very it's very claustrophobic. So if you can imagine solitary confinement, you're talking like narrow corridors, small cells, like it's a punishment. You are in there because you have done something that means you need extreme isolation, and it was sweltering hot. conditions in there. And even today, when people walk through it, they feel nauseous, they feel dizzy. And there was a murder that took place in the hole. It was the murder of one of the prison guards. An inmate broke free and bludgeoned him to death with a piece of pipe. So in terms of hauntings of guards, there is a prison guard that haunts that area. So we've got all the expected ghosts, really. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who's been inside this prison that hasn't haunted it. And by that I mean we have inmates that are haunting it. We have people who have died from suicide haunting it. I spoke yesterday about the man who doused himself in kerosene and set himself alight. We have that kind of haunting. We have hauntings of prisoners that were beaten to death and murdered by other inmates. That is again another reason for these hauntings. And we also have the accidental killings of the warden's wife, which I spoke upon earlier. So we are covering all bases, and it wouldn't be a haunted prison without a ghostly guard that keeps watch. And I think this guard is still a little bit angry because of the brutal way he died. The prisoner took the power back in that moment, and he was the victim. He was at the mercy of this prisoner who had broken free. So the tables turned in that moment. And if you would have been a prison guard in that era, that would have been double humiliation. I mean, he didn't live to tell the tale, so he didn't get to face the humiliation of that, but it's a double whammy. So Frank, the guard, is not happy, and I want to go back into the hole. I'm going to cry and get back into the hole. But if I don't, at least now you know the story about why it is so spooky. I feel like I need to give my voice a rest, so I will pause on the ghost stories for now.